Silence is often mistaken for surrender. People assume that the quiet ones have nothing left to say or nothing strong enough to defend. But in this story, Menglong proved the opposite. His silence was not absence. It was structure. It was timing. It was resistance refined into patience. Long before the world began asking questions, Menglong had already stepped back. Not dramatically, not with announcements. He simply reduced his footprint. Fewer interviews, fewer appearances, fewer explanations. At the time, it looked like exhaustion or retreat. Later, it became clear it was calculation, because silence has weight when spoken words are being manipulated. In earlier chapters of the story, chaos arrived quickly. Doors opened. People ran. Records vanished. Statements rushed ahead of facts. Power spoke loudly and often. Menglong did not compete with that noise. He let it reveal itself. Those close to him noticed a shift. He listened more than he talked. When asked direct questions, he answered carefully or not at all. Some interpreted that as fear, others as compliance. They were wrong. He was watching. Silence allowed him to observe reactions without influencing them. It let people expose priorities through behavior rather than declarations. Who panicked, who deflected, who suddenly needed certainty. Silence creates mirrors. The industry around him filled the quiet with assumptions. They built narratives to explain his absence. Creative burnout, scheduling conflicts, strategic distance. None of them touched the truth, but each revealed anxiety. Because when someone stops responding, the system must speak to itself. Menglong understood that. When the apartment fell silent and the aftermath unfolded, people expected statements. Apologies, clarifications, explanations. Instead, there was nothing. No defense, no denial, just the echo of unanswered questions. That unsettled everyone. Silence does not argue. It does not escalate. It waits. And while it waits, others reveal their hand. In the days that followed, meetings multiplied. Statements contradicted each other. Timelines were revised. Language softened. Certainty slipped. All of this happened without Menglong saying a single word. His silence had shifted the burden. Earlier, we saw how a song emerged quietly and grew louder over time. That song was not an outburst. It was an extension of silence. Music is silence organized. It is restraint shaped into form. The song did not accuse. It did not threaten. It simply existed with precision. Each pause intentional. Each lyric placed where it would mature later. That is how silence works. It does not rush to be understood. It waits for context to catch up. As attention grew, Menglong still did not respond publicly. Others spoke on his behalf without authorization. That was another mistake. Their words revealed more than his silence ever could. They explained too much. Silence makes over-explanation visible. The public began noticing patterns. Who spoke immediately, who delayed, who avoided certain phrases, who suddenly emphasized unity. Silence sharpened observation. Then came the closed case, declared complete with remarkable speed. Finality was announced as reassurance. But silence does not accept conclusions simply because they are declared. It listens for alignment. The case was closed, but behavior did not align with closure. Guarded conversations, restricted access, revised phrasing. Silence made these inconsistencies impossible to ignore. Menglong's absence became a presence. In this story, his silence was not passive. It was active pressure, like water against stone. Not loud, not dramatic, unavoidable. People began filling the quiet with their own voices. Artists echoed themes. Listeners shared interpretations. Silence invited participation without instruction. That is power. Power does not always command. Sometimes it withdraws and lets others expose themselves. When public figures tried to reclaim control, through messaging it fell flat. Their words sounded strained compared to his calm absence. Silence had already framed the narrative. One particularly telling moment came when a public event referenced resilience and moving forward. The speech was polished. The applause was polite. Yet the most discussed moment was what was not said. Menglong's name was missing. Silence made that omission thunderous. The industry underestimated silence because it cannot be managed. You cannot debate it. You cannot disprove it. You cannot outshout it. You can only react to it. And reaction reveals motive. Over time, people realized that Menglong's silence was not fear of consequence. It was confidence in truth. Truth does not need to interrupt. It allows falsehood overextend itself. Silence creates space. In that space, contradictions grow visible. We saw this when documents were revised without explanation, when timelines shifted subtly, when certainty retreated behind technical language. Silence did not need to highlight these moments. It let them stand alone. The most powerful scenes in this story contain no dialogue. People standing still after music ends. Pauses in meetings. Hesitation before answers. These are moments silence authored. Menglong understood that some battles are won by refusing to fight them directly, by letting the opponent exhaust themselves. Silence demands patience. It requires trust that time favors truth, and time has been cooperating. As the story continued, silence reshaped authority. Power accustomed to control through speech found itself exposed by its own need to explain. The louder it spoke, the weaker it sounded. Meanwhile, Menglong remained absent but influential. His silence structured the conversation without entering it. That is a paradox. Silence is not weakness when it is chosen. It is restraint when noise is expected. It is strategy when reaction is demanded. It is protection when distortion is inevitable. In this story, silence did not erase Menglong. It preserved him. It allowed his actions as art and the reactions of others to speak in harmony. The world eventually learned what he already knew. Truth does not need to shout. It needs room, and silence makes room. As silence continued to shape the story, a new phase began quietly and almost politely. There were no announcements, no dramatic shifts. Just a subtle rearrangement of behavior that felt deliberate. The first sign appeared in scheduling. Events once planned months ahead were suddenly tentative. Invitations were sent with flexible language. Confirmations were delayed. The certainty that once defined authority softened into suggestion. Silence had changed the rules. Behind the scenes, a series of internal reviews began under neutral titles. They focused on alignment and continuity. Yet their questions drifted backward rather than forward. Reviewers asked why certain decisions had been made so quickly, why alternative timelines were dismissed, why urgency replaced process. No one said Menglong's name. No one needed to. His absence hovered over every question like an unspoken reference point. A particularly interesting moment unfolded during a closed forum attended by individuals who had once spoken with confidence. One speaker paused mid-presentation after realizing their conclusion depended on an assumption that no longer held. The pause stretched. The audience waited. Nothing was said. That pause traveled far. Observers later described it as a first crack where authority hesitated in public. Silence had taught people how to listen for hesitation. Outside official spaces, memory continued to organize itself. People compared notes, not aggressively, not emotionally, methodically. They noticed patterns across unrelated events. Similar phrasing, similar timing, similar reactions. Silence allowed comparison without interference. A small creative collective released a piece inspired by restraint. It featured long, still frames and minimal sound. Viewers described it as uncomfortable and impossible to stop watching. The piece went viral without explanation. No captions, no commentary. Silence had become a language. Those accustomed to controlling narratives struggled with this shift. They attempted to fill the void with reassurance. New statements emphasized transparency. New initiatives promised openness. But promises made after silence feel reactive. People listen politely and then return to watching behavior. Another interesting event occurred when a routine audit revealed inconsistencies between archive summaries and original drafts. The differences were subtle. Tone adjustments, word choices, removed qualifiers, but silence magnified their significance. Why were qualifiers removed? Who decided? Silence made these questions unavoidable. At a public cultural gathering, a speaker referenced resilience and growth. Their words were well received. But the audience reaction changed when the speech ended. Applause was measured, not dismissive, not enthusiastic. Measured applause is a form of feedback. Silence had taught people how to respond without confrontation. Menglong influence during this phase became unmistakable, not through action but through the way others behaved around the absence of his voice. He had become a silent standard. Whenever someone spoke too confidently, listeners compared that tone to his restraint. Whenever someone rushed to closure, listeners remembered how quickly things had been declared finished before. Silence recalibrated credibility. Internally pressure-mounted, not external pressure. Structural pressure. Systems built on rapid response found themselves slowed by caution. Each decision required more justification. Each statement was reviewed more heavily. Silence had increased the cost of speaking. One of the most cinematic scenes unfolded in a rehearsal room. A speaker practiced remarks repeatedly, but could not settle on phrasing. Every sentence sounded either too defensive or too dismissive. Eventually, they stopped rehearsing and sat quietly. That moment mattered. Silence had entered decision-making. The industry attempted to normalize this new atmosphere by labeling it maturity, reflection, evolution. Yet the underlying discomfort remained. Because silence does not belong to anyone. It cannot be owned or directed. It can only be endured. As time passed, Menglong's silence continued to outlast reactions. People who initially filled the void with speculation grew tired. What remained were those willing to wait. Waiting became a form of participation. Another subtle shift occurred when public discussions began referencing timing rather than blame. People asked when things were decided rather than who decided them. Silence redirected attention to sequence. Sequence reveals intent. Documents were re-examined. Edits were traced. Gaps were noted. Silence did not accuse anyone. It simply allowed patterns to surface. A striking moment came when an unrelated event triggered comparisons. Observers noticed how differently uncertainty was handled. More caution, more explanation, more delay. It was as if a lesson had been learned. Silence had taught it. Menglong absence had reshaped response culture. People spoke slower. They avoided absolute language. They left room for revision. That room was silence. As the story progressed, it became clear that silence had accomplished what confrontation could not. It had changed incentives. Speaking without substance became risky. Acting without alignment became visible. The power dynamic shifted quietly. The final event of this chapter unfolded without spectacle. A previously definitive statement was quietly revised, not retracted, adjusted. Language softened again. Certainty gave way to review. No announcement accompanied the change. People noticed anyway. Silence had trained them to. By this point, it was undeniable. Silence was no longer interpreted as weakness. It was recognized as control exercised with discipline. Menglong had demonstrated that influence does not always require presence. Sometimes it requires restraint. His silence had forced others to reveal themselves through excess explanation, through defensive clarity, through rushed closure. Silence had not ended the story. It had slowed it to a pace where truth could survive. And in that slowed space, something important had happened. Power had learned to hesitate. That hesitation marked the beginning of accountability. Not spoken, but felt.